Hey guys, what's up? It is week 460. I got a big update for you. A bunch of titles. My Vertigo Syndrome monthly stuff came in. But let's jump right into the reviews here. And this is an upgrade from MVD Rewind. They're going back and kind of upgrading some of the stuff that came out about damn near close to a decade ago. It doesn't seem that long ago. But I did cover the Blu-ray this, and I've seen this movie many times as being kind of a Van Damme junkie as a little kid. Me and my brother were Arnold and Van Damme guys. That's what we watched here. And this is Double Impact 1991. This is actually directed by the same guy, Sheldon Lettuce, who did Lionheart. Lionheart is also one of my favorite Van Damme films. He wrote Bloodsport, so this guy was with Van Damme pretty early on. Now, this is kind of like a co-production deal here. Parts were shot in LA, parts were shot in Hong Kong, and I believe maybe Taiwan was the third country, which is common with the Hong Kong productions in general. But, when I always made the joke, when I used to talk about Van Damme movies, I said there's three kinds of Van Damme movies. There's one where he's running away. He's getting tracked down, hard target, nowhere to run. They're after him. There's one where there's two of them. Double Impact, Replicant, and then there's the one where he's in a kumite, like The Quest and Lionheart and Bloodsport. He's in this tournament, this fighting tournament kind of style thing. So, this is one of the obviously two Van Dammes here, and this is definitely the first Van Damme double kind of movie here. I know Double Team by Choi Hark, which is not really two Van Dammes, but it might sound like one, which kind of points to, it's kind of odd, how long of a history Van Damme's had with Hong Kong films, right? Bloodsport was made in Hong Kong, at least parts of it from my understanding. It's been years since I watched Blood. Where's the deluxe edition of that one? I love that movie. And then we had, of course, the Choi Hark movie, Double Team and Knockout. So, he has a kind of a long history here. Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's not always the greatest actor ever, but he does have a lot of, charisma. And I think that he came along fast. Within the first couple roles, he kind of had established himself as a pretty solid actor, and he got better in some later roles and stuff like that. But Double Impact is a pretty gory action ride, to say. It's a little long. I will say it's a little long, but we have this kind of classic story here, right, where we have, I don't remember exactly the guy's position here, but the Van Damme's parents of the twin brothers here, and he gets double crossed by a Hong Kong politician and a British politician, and they treat him dirty, take what he basically helped establish, and they're going to double cross him, kill him and his wife, and they try to kill the twins, but Jeffrey Lewis, their bodyguard, great character actor Jeffrey Lewis, and classic westerns, and for more modern film fans, of horror film fans, Devil's Rejects, of course. I've always been a big fan of Jeffrey Lewis, but he's a great kind of character in this one. He ends up saving the twins. They get separated. One grows up in the mean streets of Hong Kong, not dealing like kind of merchandise and stuff, kind of a little shady stuff, and one grows up more in like a sophisticated, kind of pampered lifestyle. They both can fight, but I believe Alex may be the, is it Alex or Chad or stuff like that, but Alex is the more dangerous one, the one more willing to shoot and kill. And you can tell this because he has slick back hair. That's the number one kind of, anytime somebody's an evil version of somebody or the more harsh version of them, they have slick back hair. Sometimes they'll make them they'll be like a black character, like a shadow or something. It'll change the colors, or he's a Green Ranger, any kind of things like that. But essentially the same kind of deal. But what happens is Jeffrey Lewis kind of puts these two brothers together and tells them that this is rightfully theirs, and he wants them to get revenge. Well, he gets revenge as well against the kind of group of baddies. The baddies are a lot of fun. The British actor is in a slew. The British character is in a slew of movies, but I actually surprisingly know more of the Hong Kong guys. You got Bolo Young here, who was in, some early Bruce Lee, some early Shaw Brothers stuff, like he's in Boxer's Omen, which is some later Shaw Brothers stuff, maybe more so mid-level time frame Shaw Brothers stuff, and then some later stuff like Boxer's Omen, and of course he had worked with Van Damme in Bloodsport as the main kind of villain in here, very, very memorable character. He's also kind of the main henchman baddie in this one, and Philip Chang, or Cha, Chan, Chan, I would call it Chan, is in here as well, and he was just in a couple movies that I covered for 83, Red Panther, Spirit, Amour, where he plays a really great comical role, and he tends to pop up in a lot of Hong Kong movies with his own last surname as the kind of like officer or cop and stuff, and he plays kind of the Hong Kong baddie. We also have Slash Gallagher from Hologram Man popping up in here as a goon, as well as, I know I'm missing somebody, and the other kind of side characters are fun too. They take the time to establish kind of like the bodybuilding woman who is one of my favorite kind of characters, and even kind of this guy with this like this blade in his shoe, kind of like Roadhouse or something along those lines. But in the 90s action style or late 80s, early 90s action style, there's plenty of squibs, plenty of people getting shot. It's an international kind of like it's shot in international places, but there is a lot of like locations. They don't stay in one location. It doesn't seem low budget, but of course it's going to do that typical action 90s or Hong Kong thing where it's like, hey, we're in a warehouse, so a bunch of crazy stunts and shit are going to happen. I am actually surprised watching this in 4K how well the stuff holds up with the two Van Dammes on the screen at one time. And they had like, I think, two martial arts guys that could fight, and they also had like stand-ins that were twins that kind of look like Van Damme, so they kind of had all that kind of elements going on here too. This originally was going to be part of the Golem Globus kind of three-picture deal they had with Van Damme. They didn't believe in him at first, according to the special features, but right when they saw like some of his movies doing well, they were like, hey, Van Damme, we want you to do another one. But things didn't work out, and this kind of ended up getting moved to different places. They discussed a lot of that stuff in the making of, about how the monies they were fighting over Hong Kong and LA locations, and they actually came out saying a couple of people were like, the people in Hong Kong were a little bit more honest with us than some of the people in LA. But just a fun action movie, maybe a little bit too long, but I think it is definitely well worth watching. And that early kind of Van Damme streak, I think that his like heyday for me started with like Bloodsport, then we have Lionheart, then we have Double Impact. I think that Kickboxer's okay. I love Hard Target. I like Universal Soldier. So I grew up a lot, kind of a young action junkie, and Van Damme was one of the staples for me. Along with like Arnold and Bruce Willis and Stallone, and even some Chuck Norris in there, and a little bit of Steven Seagal. Well, we were never the biggest Steven Seagal fans, although I did watch a lot of his movies growing up, and I enjoyed kind of the supporting cast and stuff, and some of the action's fun. Like, I'm a big Under Siege fan. That's a fun movie. But you know what? Overall, I think Double Impact is pretty damn good. As far as the features are concerned, of course, we have director-approved 2025 4K scan restoration, and then we have HDR audio. The audio is in 5.1. LPCM and a 2-point stereo. We have subtitles, Spanish subtitles, French, booklet. And then here's the features, which I believe are all ported over. The Making of Double Impact, 53 minutes. The Making of Double Impact Part 2, 59 minutes. A 2-part feature-length retrospective documentary about making the film, featuring interviews with stars and co-writer Jean-Claude Van Damme and co-writer Sheldon Lettich, producer Asmak Amaraja, and co-star Corey Everson Diono, co-star and fight coordinator Peter Malato, and Chad and Alex photo doubles Jeff Rector and Jerry Rector. Double Impact deleted extended scenes, 54 minutes. Double Impact anatomy of a scene with director Sheldon Lettich, 8 minutes. Double Impact 91 behind the scenes, rarely seen legacy footage from 91 featuring interviews with Jean-Claude Van Damme and other people as well, 6-7 minutes. Double Impact B-roll, raw B-roll. Double Impact film clips, 5 clips from the film for use of TV promos. Cast and crew EPK interview clips, Jean-Claude Van Damme again in there. Double Impact MVD Rewind promo, tons and tons of stuff on this release. It is region locked on the Blu-ray, but 4Ks are supposed to be non-region. But yeah, fun upgrade, enjoyable, and still enjoyed it. Probably a little bit more than the last time I watched it, but this was a favorite as a kid, and it does have a little bit of sexy time in there and stuff like that, which I always remembered. And the bizarre scene where the brothers think he betrayed him and stuff, and he's like fighting for his life. The female kind of love interest in here. They talk about her casting and how they wanted Tina Carrera, which I think probably would have felt a little bit better being in the location stuff, but she does fine. I have real no complaints about any of the cast or crew or anything like that. Good stuff. Okay, the next one is from 88 Films, and this is a rewatch too, and I covered this on here before it had a US Blu-ray. And this is Duel to the Death from 88 Films, like I said, 1983 flick. And I saw this early on doing the weekly show kind of vibe thing, and this is before I had watched so many Hong Kong movies, and I don't think I appreciated this one fully. So this one is really cool in a lot of ways, because if you watch a lot of the Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest and movies leading up to Duel of the Death, you kind of see these kind of themes that pop up in the movies. You have the Chinese versus Japanese kind of definitely culture kind of wars, martial arts sparring off here. You have the Shaolin monk stuff going on. You have the wuxia stuff going on. You have the ninja stuff going on. And then at this time you start to bleed in, and a lot of them start to become a little bit more artistic, a little bit like the sword and things of that nature, which actually one of the stars in this film as well. Norman, I always say his name wrong, but he's in Seeding of a Ghost, We're Going to Eat You. Zoo Warriors, just a great Hong Kong actor, fantastic actor, and he plays actually the Japanese character in this film. So you have all those kind of elements that made the Shaw Brothers and Hong Kong cinema of, you know, kind of the martial arts and swordplay movies so popular, and they're all kind of meeting together and kind of moving it forward to a certain extent, because it does feel like the old school ones, but it also does feel a little new, especially when you get into the kind of definitely the Shaolin thinking mindset is definitely part of the classic thing. But I feel like the way the fight scene is shot, the way the atmosphere is done, the way the characters move, and also the idea that they're adding in like these elements that could be cheesy, like the ninja coming out, the giant ninjas, and tons of different ninjas popping up in here. But overall, I think this is a perfect smorgasbord for somebody that kind of wants to get a taste of it all. Here is Duel of the Death. So basically, here's what it is. We have like everybody calls in forth, you know, the greatest Chinese warrior put forth against the greatest Japanese warrior. They're going to fight to the death to prove who's the best. Of course, there's kind of some seedy kind of people going about here, and they have that classic trope here, right, where one of the Chinese people is actually going to betray his own kind of group and everything, and he has his reasons, which is kind of like the Chinese kind of in these movies, like they always is like that's the absolute worst thing you could do is betray your own country, especially for like to help the Japanese. But there's these elements here where a lot of the other masters kind of start disappearing because they have ulterior motives here, and of course the Japanese are working with them because they have their own idea that is going to constantly push further after that and take over, you know, China, and that ties in with a lot of the different, you know, history of China later on, like the 1941 and all that kind of stuff like that. But that's way down the line here. But there's this element here, of course, all that kind of stuff and tension between them. But so these two are both honorable men, and we kind of go through where they save each other at certain points and don't really interact and help each other, like don't have full contact fighting, of course. And one of them doesn't see the point of everything like that, while the Japanese guy, all he lives for is this action, and it's going to end in a beautiful scene on these kind of mountaintop where there's these classic kind of wuxia moves and jumping and all that stuff of that nature. But Duel to the Death's a great one. It's a fantastic one, and I would highly recommend it, especially if you know, I don't know, because I liked it when I first saw it, but I didn't appreciate it. Seeing more of these now, like 5, 6, 7 years later, that's pretty much been a steady diet of Hong Kong or martial arts movies in general, maybe a couple a week. You know, I've kind of grown a major appreciation for this kind of stuff, and this one I liked a lot. So as far as the special features are concerned, we have slipcase featuring art by R.P. Kung Fu Bob O'Brien and booklet by Johnny Burnett, aka the Fanatical Dragon. Stunning UK restoration from original negative, original Cantonese mono with English subtitles, optional English dub mono. Commentary by Asian film expert Frank Jin, always a great commentary. Interview with actor Eddie Ko. Interview with screenwriter Manfred Wong. Dual Identity archival interview with actor Choi Soo Kung. Floral Chang on Duel to the Death archival interview with actress Flora Chung. No strings attached. Wire work featurette. Alternate English credits. Image gallery. Hong Kong trailer. Reconstructed Tai Sing trailer. Reversible sleeve featuring original Hong Kong poster artwork. Yeah, great stuff here. The director of this did a couple ones. I cannot remember what they were off the top of my head. A couple movies I've covered on here that are pretty solid as well. But yeah, highly recommended. Actually, you know, new cover art is always iffy, but I enjoy that cover art right there. I think it's a busy cover art, but it's a good cover art, and I enjoy that one. Good stuff. Okay, this next one here is by Bill Plimpton, and this is released by Deaf Crocodile 2004, I believe, here. And this is a fantastic one here. I've really grown to love this guy's animation. He did a couple that I've covered on here, Mutant Aliens and I Married a Strange Person, which are absolutely fantastic, animated, bizarre movies that I would highly recommend anyone check out here. I don't know how to explain his style, but it's essentially just like internal ideas or puns becoming physical things in real life and going over the top to ridiculous levels, and then going too far to the point of grotesque but absolutely hilarious and kind of disgusting and sexual at the same time. So Hair High takes place, it's a 50s kind of style one here, which I'm into. It has that kind of rockabilly kind of, you know, attitude about it, which I'm into as well. I do really like, you know, 50s kind of throwback movies here, and you know, Bill Plimpton's on the commentary and special features talking about, you know, he really grew up, you know, he was born in the late 40s, so he didn't see the 50s stuff in high school necessarily, but he got a taste of it, and he heard a lot of stories from his sister, so that's kind of what inspired him to do this. So what we have here is a new guy that moves into town, and immediately he makes a mistake because he's somewhat rude to Candy, who's like this super, you know, popular girl that's dating the number one football star, who's a complete douchebag. So they essentially make him be her slave. And of course, throughout time, they end up falling in love, but this love is forbidden according to the quarterback and all that kind of stuff like that. So tragedy does strike, and I don't want to get into those details exactly, but we have that kind of classic, 50s haunted kind of story here, which I absolutely love, and it's fun and playful in that aspect too. The cast is absolutely wonderful. Sarah Silverman, actually the lead actor, he's not a voice actor I'm too familiar with, but he does a great job. Love his character, love his acting in it. But Sarah Silverman plays Candy. Delmont Maroney plays the football guy. We also have David Carradine as the teacher here, literally coughs up a lung plus some. Keith Carradine's in there as a voice, as kind of the narrator, because we have this kind of bookend story narration in a diner, which is really fun. There's other people. Tom Noonan is in there. I know I'm probably skipping out on a couple of great voices too. I know that I'm missing some, but just a fantastic cast in here as well. Speaking of Carradine, I do want to mention, unfortunately, Robert Carradine's not in this, but he did pass away. Great actor, and he's one of those actors that just to my mind comes like Randy Quaid when you're like, oh man, or Jeff Bridges. These guys have been acting in forever. Jeff Bridges is a popular actor, but I'm saying these guys, have been in hundreds of great movies, and you look at their resumes, and they always are there to pop up, and they may be known for a couple big roles, but in reality, especially Carradine and Quaid, they are just really tremendous actors, and I just R.I.P. to Robert Carradine. Of course, I knew him originally from Revenge of the Nerds, but he was fantastic in The Big Red One, which is an underrated war film, and one of my favorites growing up as well. But just R.I.P. Robert Carradine. I'm going on a tirade here about the Carradines, but I mentioned that because there's two Carradines in this, and they both do a great job, especially David Carradine's voice is funny, and Bill Plimpton's got a great story about getting him to record his stuff like that. But, there's so many gags. It's so short, too. It's 78 minutes, which at the time goes by so quick, and this movie I was absolutely captivated by. I didn't get bored. I didn't get turned off on that stuff, but it's just like that classic tale, like a Tales from the Crypt, EC Comics, Revenge from the Grave, right, to set things right. But it has that playful, weird goofiness, like My Boyfriend's Back or something like that. That 50s aesthetic that's just fun, and it totally does that too. But they can do a little bit more and be wild and weird with it, right? Because we have the animated aspect to it. It's an animated film, but it also is a beautiful love story all at the same time about love never dying. And there's some like funny, gross stuff. Like, I just don't know how to explain Bill Plimpton without you guys absolutely seeing it. It's endearing, it's cute, it's gross, it's sexual, it's wonderful, and highly recommend this one. I don't know where I'd rank. I love all three of them, so it's really hard to put which ones I like best, but first ever U.S. Blu-ray release, 2 Plimpton animated shorts, Horn Dog, 5 minutes, and Shut Eye Hotel, 7 minutes. New video interview with Blue Plimpton and composer Maureen McEllerin. The tune, I Married a Strange Person, moderated by Dennis Bartok of Deaf Crocodile. New video essay, Horny High, Sex, Identity, Animated Anarchy and Hair High by film critic Celeste de la Carabra. A new commentary track by animation producer and podcaster Adam Reckoff, podcaster and film critic James Hancock, and filmmaker and podcaster Martin Kessler. New art by Beth Morris, Blu-ray authoring by David McKenzie of Fidelity in Motion. So yeah, good stuff, good special features. Obviously fans of this, and the other releases weren't necessarily great. Bill Plimpton talks about how he didn't have a big hit with this, and he kind of self-financed this to a certain extent, and getting it in film stuff and at the productions and all that kind of stuff like that. But highly recommended. I would check this one out. Deaf Crocodile doing the Lord's work when it comes to animation. Not everyone is a winner to me, but you can tell while watching almost any of their releases that somebody absolutely will adore this movie. They're making a very niche, kind of little like sub-label here, but a lot of the stuff is just is really fantastic, or at least incredibly educational. So great stuff from Deaf Crocodile. Okay, we're moving on in the Japanese Godfather box set here, and we're moving to Japanese Godfather Part 2, Ambition from 1977. And this picks up pretty much where the first film left off, and we do lose a lot of the characters, or a few of the characters from the first film. Some important characters, some kind of almost characters that you thought were pretty much essential characters for the continuation of this story. So we can have the split of course, the mob life, the kind of crime, Yakuza life, with the family life of this lead, this Japanese Don, and we're going to be, we're going to see more of his family life with his 2 daughters and his wife and their spouses and all that kind of stuff in that nature. But we're also going to kind of move on and kind of try to crown a second in charge again after what happened in the first film. And we kind of have the opposing 2 characters, one of which who is not necessarily the most trustworthy, and one who is gung-ho for the Nakajima company, and he's given a lot to this, and just like the previous second in command, he's given his entire life. Now this movie kind of follows that character a lot more in this, but we also kind of introduce a new crime boss that's opposing to our lead guy, lead crime boss here, and we have a new kind of, I guess, I wouldn't even call him antagonist, because who's the protagonist in something like this? But it's Toshihiro Mifune from, of course, the Seventh Samurai classic, Japanese actor, and he's kind of the other kind of villainous character in here. But they do kind of operate with honor as well. But this one gets interesting, I think, more in the second half of the film, when our kind of second in charge here starts to kind of he starts to have a friendship with Bunta Sugawara's character, who's a different character, if my understanding here. He kind of changes his character more on this side, and he kind of fills in the character role of Sonny Chiba from the first film, where he's this kind of wannabe aggressive kind of crime boss character that wants to move forward and use violence to get ahead and everything like that. And he's just aggravated that his hands are tied while it seemingly this company is falling, failing and falling, and people that he loves or admires are getting hurt in the process. But I think that the part that really kind of was most interesting to me is the kind of relationship that our second in command here from the first film, because it kind of was like an assistant, not assistant, but he was high up, but he was more so like the personal kind of guy who followed around the Don, but now he's been moved to that second in charge, and he starts to have this relationship with this former aristocratic woman who he's hired to run kind of this hostess place where, a lot of politicians bump shoulders with the Yakuza so they can get deals done and all that kind of stuff like that. And they start this kind of like doomed relationship, which I found very interesting. And there is a particularly really couple dark moments in here that are really depressing is the only word to use it, but the iconography is beautiful at the same time. And I think that the cover on this will kind of explain it without spoiling everything possibly right there, with the body on the ground and the roses surrounding it. I think kind of speaks volumes here. And you also get the intricate details, kind of how they basically sell people to politicians or these rich people so they get deals done. Overall, I think that Ambition, Japanese Godfather Part 2 is good. Not quite as good as the first film, because I do miss Sonny Chiba. I do miss the kind of character in the first that are no longer in here, but I do enjoy this one as well, and I like that the characters kind of switch spotlight to a certain extent, but I'm also confused where it's going to go from here. I guess there's only one way to find out, and watch the third one next week. Alright guys, let's get into those 1983 movies.
I have returned.
Okay. Show me.
Where is the music now? The sound of laughter. There was never laughter.
Like?
What's what like?
Screwing a psycho.
What the fuck was that?
It's gone.
God blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
31. 32. 32. Year of a man's prime, loved by many women. He might still learn to swim. 32. Going. Gone.
The kid was cut in half, Arnie. They had to scrape his legs up with a shovel.
Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do with shit? Scrape it up with a little shovel.
One final moment of revenge.
Wondering what's real. All of it is real.
You want to see something really scary?
You bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Get the video, Joe! Long live the new flesh!
no choice but to kill the son of a bitch.
Living one's entire life in a state of fear. It is all I have ever known. Fear.
Are you ready?
Okay, go ahead. What are you doing?
Okay, we got one from 1983, of course, and this is an Indonesian flick. Have I covered any Indonesian ones this year yet? But I know in the early 80s I've been bouncing around in all of Asia, and I've covered a bunch of the Indonesian ones, and I've enjoyed quite a bit. This one is from Terrorvision, and this is Escape from Hellhole. Yeah, and this one is, a movie that I'd heard about, I've had for years, and I never watched it. Now, first and foremost, the runtime's a little bit long, and this is a woman in prison movie, but it does involve kind of a lot of torture and some violence and stuff, so I do think it kind of moves into the horror territory. Now, the women in prison subgenre is infamously sleazy, rape-filled, that all that kind of stuff like that, especially if you watch something like, Concrete Jungle from the year previous, or what was the one, Caged Heat from this year, Chained Heat, sorry about that, Caged Heat's a different one, but Chain Heat from this year. They're very sleazy and just full of nudity, very much kind of sleaze fest, and this one is bizarre because Indonesia is predominantly, Muslim country, and a lot of the Muslim countries do not really have a lot of nudity or sex in their films. Now, violence is in those, but they kind of avoid a lot of the kind of extreme sexual nature in the movie. So it was really bizarre seeing them kind of juggle this in a sleazy kind of aspect here, but also putting it under the lens of kind of like purity, right? Like they're having this purity kind of stuff here, keep your purity above all. But so we have this woman who's being kind of blackmailed by this rich kind of asshole guy who wants a bunch of wives. So he basically uses her to bring these young innocent girls into his fold, and he enslaves them and beats them and tortures them with his guards and his army minions until they agree to marry him. And of course he'll take their virginity, and that's where we're kind of at here. But they want to keep their purity, even if it involves killing a bunch of people and doing all sorts of crazy things to do it, which I can't blame them, to be honest. But that's kind of the element here where these women are being tortured and beaten, and they have multiple escapes, and they come back and they're tortured and beaten. That's the one big issue with this movie, is its runtime's a little long and it becomes repetitive. I hate a lot of not all movies, but sometimes when you're like, we escape, we get caught, we escape, we get caught, we escape, we get caught, it gets incredibly repetitive to the point of annoyance. And I remember that movie Hotel Inferno, which is the kind of a what were those guys, the Necrostorm guys, and that movie's cool, but man, it's repetitive. It feels very repetitive. And this one started to hit that kind of thing where I was like, okay guys, let's wrap this up. It has a beautiful song, like kind of theme song within it that I thought was wonderful, and it ends with that song and a kind of beautiful kind of imagery moment here, a very memorable end shot scene here. Overall, I think this one's pretty solid, and it does have the violence here, and it avoids like hell to avoid nudity, but they'll show like nipples through shirts and stuff, and you're just like, this is so bizarre and weird that they wanted to do this subgenre where like women are being fondled and almost raped on screen, but they kind of cut away or avoid it, and it's just like goddamn like juggling all these things and being like, well, we got to bring this back in, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like watching like a post-code movie or something right after. It's like, well, fuck, man, we can't do that. We can't show this. And if we do that, we have to show this to make up for this, like all that kind of stuff like that. But this was an interesting one, and I did overall enjoy it. And the special features include interview with producer Group Samtani. This is a Rappi film, by the way. Interview with actress Lily Sagita. Interview with actress Yusin Raz. Newly created subtitles. I would recommend this one if you're into Indonesian horror flicks. You could do a lot worse. You could do better if you grab like Mystics and Bali and Queen of Black Magic and stuff like that. I love those ones. Indonesia is one of those countries that has a lot to offer if you're willing to be a little patient. There's a lot of cool horror films and exploitation films from that country. So I've been enjoying my journey going through them. Okay, we have a kind of a slightly subdued slasher film here from 1983. This is a Code Red Blu-ray release here, and this is Sweet 16. This is the director's cut. This is directed by Jim Sotos, who directed the PG version of Forced Entry from 1975. There is a more harsh version of that as well, but Forced Entry was originally a porno roughie kind of deal, and then they remade it in 1975 to a pretty solid, kind of exploitation kind of horror flick, which I do enjoy. But Sweet 16, I had seen this years ago, and I remember being okay with it. Rewatching it, the first thing that struck me was like, man, this has a fantastic cast. I mean, you got Bo Hopkins from, The Wild Bunch and White Lightning, a million movies. Great actor. Susan Strasberg, daughter of Lee Strasberg. So that's a big one right there. You also have Dana Kimmel from Friday the 13th Part 3. That's Chris in that one. The bully from the Goonies pops up in here. And Don Stroud, classic actor Don Stroud. Love him. Death Weekend, some other things of that nature. I know I'm missing Patrick Macnee from The Howling and Waxwork. Great actor as well. Who else am I missing? I know I'm going to miss somebody and feel like I'm pissed off that I missed him. But, geez, there's other people that pop up in here too. Oh, the Bishop from Caddyshack is in here as a Native American. Good performance in here too. So it's just got a great cast. Oh, Michael Pataki, I love him from, Dream No Evil and a million other horror kind of oriented exploitation movies. But yeah, the second thing that I noticed here was the movie has like a theme song, like a main theme song, Melissa, which I absolutely thought was great for the film, and the title Sweet 16, right? That's kind of really kind of creepy and ugly, especially for this time. Nowadays you look at it through that lens and you're like, oh, it's always nasty like that, but it's just been a little bit more focused on as of late. And then the music, of course, has like the theme music, but also we'll hear like that throughout the movie too, right? Like as kind of like partially the theme too, which is really well done. Sweet 16 is a really good slasher movie, and I had not seen it in years. Rewatching it, it is a little slow. It's not the most action-packed movie. It has like a mystery kind of killer element kind of deal here, where we have Bo Hopkins as the sheriff, and he has two kids. Dana Kimmel is a daughter, and then the son, and they kind of befriend this new girl who's 16 years old and is approaching her 16th birthday party, but she's kind of surrounded by death. She goes out with this young boy, and he's kind of stabbed in the back and murdered. And Patrick Macnee is her British father, who's kind of doing a an ancient Indian and Native American kind of burial dig site kind of deal, and his wife is Sarah Strasberg, sorry. So we have all that element here. Don Stroud is kind of the local just racist piece of shit, kind of much of that same energy that Vic Morrow has in Humanoids from the Deep, right? And he's just an overall goon, and he's great at that, man. He's a big scary motherfucker. He's made to play these kind of roles like that. But so what happens is a couple people end up dead, and you're really kind of confused who the killer is, and the reveal is a little sloppy. It's a little kind of we're reaching here for that kind of deal, but overall I like just the kind of the feel of the movie, the small town kind of new kind of like the southwestern kind of feel and everything of that nature. And it kind of brings me to the point of like that early 80s, right? We've been going through like 81, 82, well 82, 83. We've had a lot of Native American oriented slashers, or that kind of element here where we have these Native American characters. Like what was the Ghost Dance was there, and I know I did one for this year as well. Can't remember the title, but it definitely had the possession kind of angle in here as well. And Wolfen was 81. So like there's a lot of Native American oriented horror films in the early 80s, and this is another one that has that element too. As far as the special features are concerned now, this is the director's cut. There's not many changes between this and the theatrical cut. Code Red originally put this out on a double DVD that had, or maybe it was a single DVD, but it had the theatrical and the director's cut. I had that edition, and this has been remastered. It looks pretty good for the problem with the elements. This is a director's cut. I don't think you need to see the theatrical for my rememory or whatever from reading about it, but it does have a commentary on that DVD with the director Jim Sotos narrated, and one of the actresses, can't remember who, I listened to it today, and it's narrated by Scott Spiegel, R.I.P. He's not involved with the movie, but he made movies, acted in movies, great guy, from my understanding. But yeah, that's a kind of a fun little moderated deal on that. And then we also have an interview with Bo Hopkins and the lead actress in here. This was her first role, and Jim Sotos, and they're all sitting on a bench, and they seem very cordial and friendly. And Bo Hopkins, man, he seems like he had a good life, chill guy, seems to get along with everybody, and he always plays these kind of high energy rednecks if you're looking at something like the Wild Bunch or Killer Elite, the Peck and Paw stuff. But he seems really toned down and down to earth, and he's like, I was talking about I met Elliot Gould, one of my good friends, and you're just like, you never see Bo Hopkins and Elliot Gould as best buddies. It's just in your mind you don't think that, but it's just like, yeah, I can see it now if you're seeing them talk and stuff like that. But just, what? This is a solid slasher movie. It's decent kind of kills. There's not that many, but the reveal and the ending, I think, are worthwhile. The reveal is sloppy, like I said, but the end shot of the movie with the music coming in, I am a sucker for that kind of, passed on on Hereditary, mess up your kids kind of, the chain never breaks violence kind of deal, because I think there's a lot of truth to it, and I think it's one of the darkest things, right? You're passed on those kind of problems, from your parents and whatnot. But yeah, this is more of that. But Sweet 16, recommended, solid, cool little slasher film with a great cast. And there's other actors in here too that I didn't mention. There's not a weak link really in the movie. I think they all do a great job. But recommend it. Check this one out. Good stuff. Okay, this is a real odd one here. This is The Night, Death, and the Devil from 83, and this is an Italian film. And this director went on to do another one, another horror kind of oriented one in 1986. But I put this one in, and I started watching it, and I was like, oh, this reminds me a lot of Lisa and the Devil, the Mario Bava flick. And I was like, kind of that element here. I was like, oh, is this going to be kind of a rehash of that deal? And we have one of the lead kind of baddies from Salo, I don't know how they call it. The bishop, I think is he the duke? But he's a kind of handsome guy with the beard, the brown hair in that one. He's really good in that film, in Salo, and he's also in Illustrious Corpses. He's a really good actor, and I didn't recognize him at first here. It's been some years, probably like 8 years since Salo, so he's a little bit older, and he's kind of the lead character here. And Tilde from Tenebrae is also in here too, one of the unfortunate early victims in that film, but she plays his kind of wife. And this movie, I don't even know how to explain it. It's definitely a surreal kind of nightmare weird movie, where I don't really know exactly 100% what's going on or what the hell is happening. But so he kind of wanders into the night, and he's supposed to be home early, and the daughter and wife are kind of in the park, and this kind of strange guy who's a recognizable character actor in Italian films as well, and big movies, bit parts, if that kind of makes sense, and I'm sure he's in some bigger roles too. But he basically seems to be this devil style kind of character, and kind of confronts them and says something weird, and they kind of avoid him, and she's like, is dad going to be home? He's coming home late. But then we kind of assume this is father here as the Salo actor, and he's kind of wandering like the streets, and he ends up kind of like going into this weird kind of party, this masquerade party where they're all wearing these weird bizarre masks and outfits, and it's very sexual, and he's not really feeling like he's supposed to be there, and he ends up going to the bars and clubs. And when he goes home, he kind of like has these multiple wake ups, and we don't really know if he's ever in a dream or sleep, and it kind of starts to kind of infiltrate his family as well, and you're like, whose dream is this? Whose nightmare is this? Whose reality is this? And I know I'm like probably selling this terribly, but I did get that point. But there's some beautiful imagery as well, kind of like seeing up to the castle and the bridge to it. And I don't know all that much about this movie. I didn't have time to research. It's the last one I did watch, but I think it's kind of a hidden gem. I never heard anyone mention The Night, Death, and the Devil, but it's really cool. And I know people that are into like kind of bizarre, artistic, kind of weird, surreal horror films would enjoy this one, but I liked it. And I think there's a lot of visual, great visuals in here, and interesting kind of concepts about dreams and surrealism. And I know I'm missing a million things, and I'd like somebody to release this stateside and break it all down for me, make it make sense, because I'm too stupid. Maybe sometimes though it's not to make sense. And I just sat here and complained about abstract art and abstract movies last week. I was like, I don't like it, it's dumb. And then I'm sitting here and being like, certain movies can get away with it, especially if you're more surreal. It's funny, like if you add surreal stuff to it, because we all have these dreams and we have all these weird feelings that somehow connect, but they don't connect, and alternating reality and stuff. And I can enjoy a lot of that stuff. But every once in a while, like abstract art, like the movie Bubble Bath, which has a message and points in it. A lot of the stuff was just a little too abstract for me. I didn't really connect. Well, this one actually connected pretty well with me. Maybe it's just I live my life in my dreams or my nightmares or whatever. But I would highly recommend this one. It's interesting. It's good stuff. Hopefully we get a nice stateside release, or I'll try to possibly import it. I know there's been releases, but I don't know how available they currently are. But that is The Night, Death, and the Devil. Okay, next up we have a couple Hong Kong from 1983, and some rarities, I would say. First up is Obsessed, and I do AI subtitles on this. Man, this picture quality looked like crap. But so what we have here is kind of morality kind of tale here, where this girl is going to get involved with the fashion industry, and she's going to get kind of tangled in with some bad people. And the very opening of this movie, we have this kind of there's this cops kind of going through this place that's burned down, these firefighters going through this place that's burned down. is the proper term. And they kind of uncover something, and this guy sees this kind of burnt woman beyond recognition. He doesn't know who it is, and he becomes kind of possessed right in the beginning of the film. And we kind of cut back to him kind of following this other, he starts to follow and become obsessed with this young girl who's our main character, who's getting into the fashion industry. She's model. She's having a lot of pressure from one of the girls who's rumored to be like a lesbian that takes advantage of people. And we have a photographer who's no good, and he's probably the most recognizable actor in the movie, and the guy who's producing the whole thing. And these three kind of people I think are like the kind of sleazy people involved. There's other people involved as well, but at first it seems okay, but she's starting to have fallouts with her mother, and this kind of obsessed weird guy who's possessed is starting to follow her around in that kind of aspect. The subtitles I used AI weren't 100% perfect, so, and the picture quality wasn't great, so that's what I gathered from the story of the film. But what happens is, of course, it's revealed who this person is possessed by, and it ends up being kind of a revenge story, of course, right? Like many other movies, right? Reincarnation and revenge is very prevalent in horror, especially in the early 80s and 70s. So we carry on that kind of theme, of course. But and again, it has the morality tale here, where people being taken advantage of, getting into this industry and showing your skin is bad for you. It's not good for you. But that's kind of the element here. But it does end in kind of a really wacky, kind of crazy fight between this possessed firefighter and the photographer, and he's like drooling all over the place, like very Exorcist kind of style. But overall, I thought Obsessed was pretty interesting. If it was a nice mastered release, maybe I'd have better things to say. But as far as it is, it had like a certain element like that was a chore to get through, but it's not the film's fault. So I did enjoy it for the most part. That is Obsessed. Okay, the next one here is A Life Full of Evil. And this one I kind of stumbled across. It wasn't originally, it was one on my list of movies I couldn't find for 83. So I wasn't going to watch it, but somehow it kind of surfaced on Internet Movie Archive or YouTube. I can't remember where, but I was like, oh, cool. I'll watch this one. So I did AI subtitles. I did subtitles in a little different way, and they were absolutely horrible. The sound was out of sync on this movie for some reason, and it was just a goddamn nightmare to get through and kind of understand what the hell was going on. I did patch together, what the fuck was happening, but it wasn't easy, to be honest, guys. But I guess the plot's pretty self-explanatory. So this guy gets released from prison, right? And right away, he kind of is a criminal. He has that criminal mindset, and he's like, I gotta make money, I gotta do this kind of thing. And this is less of a supernatural kind of horror film and more of kind of just a killer, degenerate kind of character who's gonna do anything to get ahead. And which fits into a lot of the Hong Kong movies, right? Where it's like has that like courtroom kind of element, or that prison element, or that true story kind of element in it, right? But so this character gets out, and he kind of meets this rich woman, and he immediately becomes partners with her, kind of seduces her, and says, listen, I'm gonna help you, I'm an architect, we're gonna do all this great things. And he kind of kills her so he can get her her stuff and start to build his own, starts making her company, lies to all the people that he encounters about her, and other people start to figure out, and this guy will do absolutely anything to people not to figure it out. But of course, how this is going to end. Things are going to, be revealed, and we're going to have his just desserts. But the most, I think, memorable scene in this film, and it's a pretty shocking one, actually, but, animal cruelty in the early 80s is no stranger. It's not something that doesn't happen in these movies, but we see this scene where these lab mice are gassed with some sort of poison gas. Maybe he's knocking them up. I don't know. But they seem to die, and he's testing this kind of theory out, and he ends up using it on some of his workers, putting them into like the back of a cement truck, cement mixer, and gassing them, and it cuts back to the mice to reveal that kind of show. And I was like, oh, that's actually a little bit next step disturbing for this movie. And I thought it was probably the most, as gross as it is, the real animal cruelty, it was definitely the most effective shot of the film. Overall, I think A Life Full of Evil is worth watching. I think that if it was better remastered or good subtitles or in fucking sync, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more, but as it is, it was all right, and it was decent for 1983. Life Full of Evil. Okay, the next one here is Breathless from 1983. This is a Patreon pick, and I'll show it. I have this deluxe 4K, right? And this is a Jim McBride film starring Richard Gere, and the actress I'm not too familiar with. This is one of her first, her first American role. So, but it also has John P. Ryan. When he showed up in this movie with his hyperactive, he's like, hey! I was super hyped. I love John P. Ryan. Class of 1999, It's Alive, Avenging Force. Geez, fucking Death Wish 4. John P. Ryan breathes life in every movie he's ever been in. He's fucking fantastic, and he's great in this one too. Bound. How can I not mention Bound? But John P. Ryan pops up in this bad boy as a cop. But yeah, so I've never seen the original Breathless from 1960. Of course, a classic French cinema here, and I'll probably change that. But this one here from '83, I'd heard a lot about. I know that it has its haters, has its lovers, and they always mention it. Hell, there's even a special feature on here talking about how much Tarantino likes the movie, of course. And you can tell watching this, the lovers on the run kind of story here is something that's definitely, appealed to Tarantino, as, he wrote True Romance and Natural Born Killers and all that kind of stuff like that. But so what we have here is Richard Gere is one of the oddest characters. And Richard Gere is an actor that, for years I was never a huge fan of. I didn't hate Richard Gere. He was just kind of there, and he was in movies that were very plain Jane. Just to kind of, hey, I'm the straight guy in Pretty Woman or something like that. I'm not really, not necessarily, I'm a handsome kind of straight kind of acting guy, and I don't really appeal to me very much. But then I saw American Gigolo by Paul Schrader, and I was like, oh, he's really good in this. That's a good role. That's a brave role. And this one too. And I'm like, oh wow, Richard Gere is he's doing something for me here. He's just that, like I say, most actors that are, most actors are pretty solid. It's just that they need to win you over with a role or something that you'll enjoy. And it's not like they're doing bad roles. It's just that the roles don't speak to you. And this one spoke to me. And it's a weird role. It's a strange role, but he is 100% a character that I kind of understand. He's that character that's very childlike, kind of degenerate at the same time, like a Billy the Kid, right? Where he has a lot of charisma and he's likable and he's interesting, but at the same time, he's just an overall piece of shit loser that's never, he just drives you crazy because he never does the right thing. He never thinks of anyone else but himself. And he thinks of love, power of cosmic, all that kind of shit like that. So Richard Gere has started, in the very beginning, he's leaving Las Vegas and he steals this Porsche. And he's driving in the backlit, you see the sky in the background and it's red and it's beautiful, the sun's setting, and he's like, look at that sky. But then every once in a while they'll cut at the outside and it'll look kind of like normal sunset. And I'm wondering if this is how his vision of seeing it, like this over kind of saturated, or like not saturated, but over the top kind of look, how he sees the world, this excitement, everything like that. And he's singing to the songs, of course, Breathless and whatnot. And you kind of see that he's obsessed with Jerry Lee Lewis. He's obsessed with Silver Surfer, Power Cosmic and stuff like that. He brings that up. And he's obsessed with this French exchange student who's like moving forward in her life, and she's like making good progress in college, and she's sleeping with her teacher, and he's introducing her to people and stuff like that. She has a life. She has these goals and set and everything like that, and she's a couple years younger than him, but she's just so much more mature and moved forward than that, but not necessarily, right, at the same time. So they start this relationship, and he's wanted because in the beginning he kills a cop. And not necessarily 100% on purpose, but he's on the run. And throughout the movie, he's trying to forget, he's trying to fall more in love and live his life and have fun and flirt with girls when he sees them. But there's these constant reminders, the newspaper, the TV, all this stuff, and it becomes more and more and more pressure on him that he can't hide from it. And, this building up, and he keeps wanting to run away with her to Mexico, and they start this kind of like dangerous lovers kind of run, right? And whatnot. It's stylized really well. There's kind of wild car. The way that he drives is absolutely hilarious. Every time he pulls away, the guy's wanted by the cops, but he never takes any, he just speeds and runs on every red light, just fucking maniac. Incredibly aggravating. But the ending is also different from the original film. It ends in a kind of weird, unique way that I don't know how if I liked it or not, but I didn't hate it. And as I get older, I'm less about all the closure, because if a movie, not every movie needs to be realistic, of course, and that would be terrible if they all were, because we'd all be holding them under a microscope. But the idea that you need closure for a movie, like, The Thing's one of my all-time favorites. There's no closure in that ending, right? People could say, well, this is definite. It's like, there's no answer. That's the answer. There's no answer. And this one too, right? It's, you can assume what happened, which Casting the Sundance Kid, you can assume, that idea, right? But that one's more obvious. But, I'm just saying, like, right? There's no closure in life, even as comic book like as this movie is. Maybe there's not closure in this either, in that aspect, and I kind of enjoy that to a certain extent. I don't know how I feel about Richard Gere singing Breathless. I mean, it's too realistic, because that song's just so odd for somebody to sing without the background music. But I do like a lot of the soundtrack, of course. Suspicious Minds by Elvis Presley. Fucking love that song. Always love that song. Elvis in a movie is always a positive in the soundtrack. I've always been a fan. But also, Tarantino had Christian Slater obsessed with Elvis instead of Jerry Lewis in True Romance. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. But there's a lot to like about this movie. The soundtrack, the cinematography, the acting. I think that Richard Gere is a unique performance. I've never seen anyone quite do that kind of manic, childlike, but also dangerous quality exactly like him. I would put Martin Sheen in Badlands in that same aspect, right? Or even Emilio Estevez as Billy the Kid in Young Guns. But I think that Badlands is the grounded, realistic version of it. But this one has that element too. But yeah, good film, and it's an interesting character because it's a aggravating but charming character all at the same time. Nice deluxe edition from the sub-label here, the cinematograph. I hate that fucking name of that title, and no matter how many times people tell me it, I'll never remember it, and I'll never say it right. But here are the special features. Commentary by Jim McBride. That's an interesting commentary because he talks about how this movie got made, and he not necessarily Richard Gere wasn't first choice. This is also a big movie. They didn't want him to do it, so all these elements like that. Moderated by Justin LaLiberty. New audio commentary with film writer Travis Woods. He is ecstatic about this movie. He loves this movie. He breaks down all this kind of stuff, and he thinks it's a modern day masterpiece. And this is a first time watch for me, so I can't go that far, but I did enjoy, and I do appreciate his enthusiasm in breaking all these things apart. And I agree with a lot of what he said. Rock and roll as an attitude. New video interview with Jim McBride. A different perspective. New video interview with casting director Jane Jenkins. To ensnare is to enshrine. The ghostly layers of Jim McBride's Breathless. A new video essay by film historian Daniel Creamer. Theatrical trailer. Deleted scenes and alternate ending with audio commentary by Jim McBride. Booklet featuring text essays by cinematographies Justin LaLiberty, film programmer Justine Perez-Smith, and film critic Kristen Yoon-Son Kim, as well as original production notes and lobby cards. So yeah, great release. It looks gorgeous too. Fantastic. Look very, very good on 4K. Gorgeous looking movie, and I enjoyed it. Definitely have to watch the original, and they do kind of hide out in back of a movie theater that's playing Gun Crazy, which is a nice shout out. Gun Crazy, great movie. Gotta love Gun Crazy. But yeah. All right, let's get these questions, comments, and concerns. So we got this comment, Smells of Death. The reason why Esprit d'Amore feels different to the other Ringo Lam films is down to the fact that he took over directing partway through filming. The film was originally being directed by Po Ching Leon, who directed films you covered like He Lives by Night in Hong Kong 1941, as well as acting in Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind. Leon had a falling out with producer Cinema City head Carl Maka during the making of Esprit d'Amore and walked away from the film. Desperate to get the film finished, Maka decided to take a chance on Ringo Lam, who had only worked in television up to that point. According to Ringo Lam, Po Ching Leong had already shot about a third of the film when he took over. That's very interesting, honestly, and I wish I would have done the research. Maybe in my essay, I'll definitely mention that. Good information, thank you again. Sometimes you watch these movies and you just move along, and I definitely should have done some little research on that one, but I enjoy that movie, and it does make sense. It's disappointing that the first Angel Guts film is being blocked from release, but I do think it's easily the weakest entry in the series. Thanks for another great show. Thank you. Hayden94, how did you create subtitles for Serial Rape Murderer? Do you have the SRT file? Thanks, I sent it to you, but you can use AI Google Studio if you mess around and work with it, or you can use Subtitle Edit. They have Whisper and Kosh and stuff like that in there. Gray Nunez gives me a smiley face. Thank you. No More Room in Hell podcast. What's up, Mike? Totally agree about modern action movies. They feel so empty and disassociated compared to past decades. Green screens, rapid quick cuts, and digital effects just can't exude the same weight, depth, or feel as the fight choreographing from the past, or nor the creative, imaginative stunt work. 100% agree. I just listened to Mike and Justin. Mike and JP and Lacey and Tyler's podcast about, they're doing a 100-year challenge. Each year they pick a movie they haven't seen. That's a blind spot, and talk about it. It was a very interesting podcast. Good stuff, guys. Ed Rooney, 1967. One thing I really admire about labels like BFI, Arrow, and especially Radiance is how consciously curated their releases are. They're not just rescuing obscure titles, they're mapping entire studio identities. When Japanese cinema in particular, you can see how different studios embody different worldviews in the post-war period. Toho often framed stories about moral structure and social order. Nikatsu leaned into modern alienation and existential cool. Dai explored transitional, often tragic films caught between collapsing systems. And Toei, especially in the 70s, pushed into raw, chaotic Yakuza films that feel like the direct response to social and economic instability. That is a very intelligent, smart way to look about it. And I'm watching these every week, and I'm like, I guess if you took a whole picture and just watched like 5 of each film, you'd be like, you can very much see this. And a lot of their movies do directly have that element, right? Like Yokohama Blues and all that kind of shit like that, where you're like, oh, this place is it's very interesting for its geographical location of where like American troops were there and how they influenced this kind of period, all sorts of shit like that. When you watch something like Japanese Godfather in that context, it becomes more than a Godfather-inspired crime film. film. It's part of a larger studio conversation about hierarchy, family, loyalty, and power at the moment when those structures were being questioned across Japanese society. I've been slowly building my own world review of post-war Japanese cinema on Blu-ray and 4K, and sets like this really help illuminate how those studio identities evolved. Radiance does a great job of making that lineage visible again. Really enjoyed the review. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the next 2 films. Yeah, that was fucking great, Ed Rooney. Maybe I get you on the show to talk about these. That was good stuff. No, and you're right. The Japanese Godfather films seem to realize that there's so many people within this organization, right? And they're giving their heart and soul to the organization, and guess what happens to them? They die. They get nothing for it. And their leaders just abandon them. And at this point, I'm like seeing the leaders of these organizations be the villains within the first 2 Japanese Godfather films. Way Up Dude gives me a thumbs up. Thank you. Ilk Vomit. Just finished watching The Burbs on Peacock, and boy, was it awful. Steer clear, everyone. Yeah, it looked like... It's just no interest in taking like this movie that I absolutely adore that has like small like roles by like Robert Picardo and Dick Miller, and this small like, oh, that character's in the movie for like 5 minutes, but it's such a good established little tiny role. I don't need to see... I don't know how the show is, but I don't need to see 4 hours of that character, right? The Simpsons got into that too, where I love The Simpsons back in the day, but like it goes so far that it's like I just watched a whole episode on Dr. Nick, and it's like it's just whatever it is. It's like it's too much of that character. Revealing everything or diving into everything too deep sometimes with characters' backgrounds, it says less about them than showing a little bit. And then we just Real Moody. The question I ask myself is why? Why make this show, and who is it for? Ooh. Oh, that he's replying. I thought he was talking about my show. Yeah, no, he's replying to Ilk Vomit. Sometimes that questions. Yeah, and I don't understand either. I really don't get it. Why the fucking Burbs miniseries? Like weird. Tim Hayes, You're the Hunter from the Future is still is one I still need to watch. It sounds like fun. It's a blast. I think you'll enjoy it, Tim Hayes. And it's a long time. I haven't heard you comment in a while. Door Kitty Films. Rockers is a great never seen film. I got it years ago on DVD. I'm glad to see someone else mention it. It's a fun movie. Great music, and the record store scene is amazing. Nick from Flanders. I'm all for a taste of violence so long as I'm not the one subjected to it. Yeah, right. All kidding aside, I love black and white films. They're just so classy, especially the ones they had to shoot that way prior to the introduction of color. Loving your enthusiasm for pictures from the Far East. Your next show will be in Japanese. Right, Sir Dave? Absolutely fucking not. Questions. How do you feel about current day features being shot in black and white? Very classy or endlessly pretentious? Depends on the movie. I don't mind, and I just don't think about it. Like, I know a lot of people got mad at Strange Animal because it was like shot on film. People are like, oh, you gotta tell everybody. It's like, yeah, I fucking do. All right, I don't give a shit. Fuck you. That's what I would have said in my response. I don't care. Like, I think that real directors don't give a shit what other people think anymore. Like I wouldn't if I was making movies that I enjoy. But I just gotta keep making them at least good enough for people to like them. But it's just that element, right? I don't care as long as I like the movie. I don't think about it. Maybe I probably watch the movie. It's like, why is this pretentious crap? And I have seen movies where like, this seems like pretentious shit. So it depends. But I don't have any a clear cut opinion on every movie that's black and white modern day. Whose judgment do you follow? Do you follow more concerning film critics or fellow audience members? A mix of both. For old movies, I don't follow anyone. If it looks like something I'd enjoy, I'll watch. Period. New movies, I get the gist of it and everything like that. And if it doesn't really speak to me, I might wait and hear. But some movies I absolutely have to see no matter what. But old movies, I'll watch them and take my own opinions and judge. Which is your favorite of the Peter Cushing Frankenstein movies? I mean, Curse of Frankenstein's great. I want to revisit that, and I think that I'll rate it even higher than I did. I feel like I rated it too low when I watched it. I was like, man, that movie's so impactful and different too at the time. And I mean, for like Hammer, I fucked up on that. But I think that Frankenstein Created Woman is one I remember really liking. I remember that one being pretty warped and pretty crazy. It's definitely not Revenge or Evil. Evil is one of my least favorites. And Horror Frankenstein, I didn't love the first time. There's no Cushing in that one though, so I shouldn't even mention that one. But I think it's probably Frankenstein Created Woman. And one of the other latter day Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. I think that Cushing is absolutely hilarious in that movie when he's talking shit to the doctor. So, I like kind of those ones. As far as where we at now, so Damo arigato for another entertaining hour, Dave's son. See you next week, God willing. Sayonara. Thank you. Ken Coakley, I watched Yor on Tubi for the first time in a while. I really like Reb Brown. He was great in Uncommon Valor, but all the actors in that movie swung for the fences. I agree. Uncommon Valor had a stellar cast. Besides Gene Hackman, the outfit consisted of Fred Ward, Tim Thomerson, Robert Stack, Harold Sylvester, Tex Cobb, Patrick Swayze, great cast. Brown also appeared in a movie that I liked called Big Wednesday. Great movie. I covered it on here. It was a surf drama starring Jan Michael Vincent, William Catt, and Gary Busey, as well as Robert Englund. Robert Englund does a narration. It's a great one. Back to Your, the movie was reminiscent of kiddie matinees that I went to when I was a kid. There was a lot of movies sent from Italy, Mexico, Sweden, Japan. All the movies I saw at the matinee were made in the 60s, and they were trippy. Speaking of trippy, I also watched Bubble Bath. Talk about surrealism. There was a lot of shape changing. I thought I was tripping. To be fair, I have never seen Quaylen, but during your review you mentioned The Shining and Burnt Offerings as successful movies in which the houses were the monsters. I give credit to The Visible Ghost, eerie soundtracks, and cinematography. I give credit to Burnt Offerings for having the best monster ever. Anthony James as a chauffeur with the mirrored sunglasses and sinister grin was brilliant. Anthony James as a character actor who was in the main outlaw and High Plains Drifter, as well as to play the brothel worker in Unforgiven. Yeah, I do remember him in Burnt Offerings, but I do think the house is what they're feeding into, right? The house is the kind of main villain of it. Salem's Lot is another one where the house is the one who attracts the vampires to go there in the first place. I don't remember if that's actually in the movie. It is mentioned in the movie as well. I know it's probably a bigger part in the book. But Anthony James, I feel like Anthony James is in one of the crummy horror parody movies from the early 80s as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I definitely remember him in how could you forget him in Unforgiven? He just walks in, and what is his name, Slim or something like that? But I do agree to a certain extent. It's been a long time since I watched Burnt Offerings, but I do remember really liking it. Venmo Movie Lover, it's my fave. YouTuber, thank you very much. Oh, Venom Overlord. Venom Overlord 7016. Yeah, we are Venom. Thank you. It's my favorite YouTuber. I appreciate that. But thank you. And we're going to do the Patreon drawing here. Let's get 5 names out. See where we're at. See what we're watching next. We got 2 here. First up, Tyler Tadeo, Mikey and Nikki, directed by Elaine May. There we go. Then what else we got? We got All That Jazz, Jim Simon. I've been waiting to watch this one. I'm actually pumped to watch that Roy Scheider movie. I wanted to see it forever, and I say All That Jazz at the end of it, probably because that title's been stuck in my head forever. And plus it's saying Tyler Tadeo, Jin Wolf, The Wolf Brigade, directed by Hiroyuki Okiura. I don't know this one, but I'm looking forward to it. 2 Tyler Tadeos. Tyler does pretty good choices, to be honest. 2 more. We have Tom Brooker, Beowulf 07. I cut some of that off. And last, let's get one deep down in there. Let's get one that's old. It should have been drawn out years ago. Tom Brooker, Club Dread. I'm looking forward to rewatching Club Dread too. I saw that when it came out and I was disappointed, but like rethinking about it, I was like, no, I was wrong. That movie, I don't think I got it 100%. And I remember just Bill Paxton being Coconut Pete. You must mean a Pina Colada Berg, and I just can't wait to rewatch that scene. But yeah, those are some good picks. Let's get into this update, guys. Should be a nice one. Alright, let's get into this update. First up is from Shout Factory. We got the Hong Kong Classics line here. Prison on Fire 1 and 2. I've always wanted to see these. Now I get to watch them in 4K. Very awesome. I really look forward to checking these out. Heard they're great. Next up, this was on sale, so I grabbed the Peking Opera Blues. I think this is a Choi Hark movie, if I'm not mistaken. 4K, also from Shout Factory. Look forward to watching that one. And then up next, we have the Angel Guts collection here. This is from Third Window Films, and it is missing the first Angel Guts film. There's an issue with that, keeping it from release. I think one of the actresses is fighting it, or she's famous at this point. So we have the 5 of the 6 Angel Guts movies. Now, Red Flash was released previously on a box set that Third Window did, but we have Red Classroom, Nami, Red Porno, Red Vertigo, and Red Flash. So very cool. I've only seen a couple of these, and I really enjoyed them. Kind of classic Nakatsu movies. So look forward to checking those out finally. And I do have the old Arts Magic release with the first one on there, but only in DVD, unfortunately. Now we have the Vinegar Syndrome stuff coming through. We have Love Camp. This is a Jess Franco. On this one, obviously more porno related or softcore to a certain extent. A lot of nudity on the covers, so I will avoid it, although it's just artwork there. But yeah, always got to buy my Jess Franco. This one, I don't normally buy contemporary horror films or low-budget movies, but this, I saw the trailer for this one and the title, and some movies just speak to you, and this one's called Hoagie. Branded as a new neighbor. Hoagie is new to this world. This just looks so weird. It looked like if I still tried to make movies, that I would make something like Hoagie, or try to. Looks fun, looks wild, looks weird. And then we have one from 83, SOV movie here, The Rocker Shocker the Bleeder. This movie's pretty horrible, but, it's a Scandinavian slasher flick. Pretty tedious, but I picked it up just to find some background on it and maybe watch a newer, better print. But that is Bleeder. Not a great film. Then we have Dead of Night, the complete series from, is this Saturn's Core here? Where's the damn label? Or is it, who is this? VHS Shitfest, which is a good company. I like them. Cheap cover art there, but fun and homemade, and definitely not AI. I like that stuff. Then we have, wow, I'm going to mispronounce this, Folies, Meurtrieres, and the films of Antoine Pellissier, and I've seen some of these titles floating around, kind of like underground weird films, but I've actually never seen any of them, so I'm looking forward to watching these. This is from Bleeding Skull, so you know it's going to be completely fucking insane. And then we have Deadwood Park, great Eric Stanze, kind of a ghost story if I remember correctly, just well done, good atmosphere. There's a really great kind of circle shot in here. Deadwood Park, good one from Stanze, memorable, not like a gore film or extreme film, just a good solid ghost story. Then we have the Emblamer. This is from EGFA, and is this the one that was partially directed by, is this the Andy Milligan? I can't remember, but this one has been on my watch list for a while. Looks absolutely ridiculous. I don't hear many good things, but hey, that never stopped me before. Then we have the VSA here, Dead Boys Can't Fly. I have a VHS of this sitting somewhere, and it's been 100 years since I've watched this frickin' thing. Oh, you know what? I'm going to grab it just to show you guys. Why not? So this is I saw this movie originally on VHS, and it's been about 100 years since I watched it here. But I think I got it because Clockwork Orange for the 90s. I don't know about all that, but there we go here. Rocky Horror Show Performance. I remember it being wild and kind of weird. I'm looking forward to revisiting it. Maybe Blu-ray will bring it out, make it a little bit better. And then lights almost went down there and probably bumped the sound. Of course that's happening. Then we have Bakterion, aka Panic, 1982. Isn't it Italian, maybe possibly Spanish co-production, Spanish money in this one if I'm not mistaken, but Janet Argan, David Warbeck. This movie is just okay. It's kind of like The Melting Man, but not quite as good. It's fine. It's fine. And then we have Demonwarp. That's right, you woolly bastard. We got fucking the man, the myth, the legend, George Kennedy here. This is an absolute holy grail release here from Vinegar Syndrome. Absolute blast movie. You got zombies, you got aliens, you got Bigfoot. This is fun. This is one of those like lost on VHS classics. I'm so happy to have it on 4K, I think now. That's wild. And then we have Body of Evidence. This is a thriller from my understanding. I don't know much about Body of Evidence, but it's got a great cast. I'm sure it's a pretty decent movie. And then last, from the Vinegar Syndrome cinematography line, I always say that wrong, and I'm never going to say it right because I'm an idiot. But we have Boxcar Bertha, Barbara Hershey, Martin Scorsese movie, David Carradine. You know, and I had heard about this one forever. This is, I believe, Martin Scorsese's second film after Alice doesn't live here anymore, and I've never seen this one, so looking forward to checking it out. That is the update, a pretty decent size update. Yeah, we're out of here. All right, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.